I do miss seeing everybody in person, but there's also a degree to which there's kind of some sweetness in this version of the practice. There's its own level of intimacy as you can practice, in your house. Maybe even set up a nice little space that you're really comfortable with, that you've got your stuff around. You set it up how you want, where maybe at the studio or at the rec center it's not dialed in exactly how you want it. You've got your bathroom when you need it, you've got everything you need, but hopefully you can also set aside some time, the 60 minutes while we're practicing, to just be pretty focused and pretty dialed in. So let's get started. What I'd really like to do is just try to take a couple minutes and settle. So we're going to start down on our belly. Is come into a prone position. I hope I don't go out of frame there. You guys know what a prone position is. And let's just take a moment. So, come down. Find your feet about as wide as your mat. Let your elbows splay open a little bit. Let your head relax. And just track a few breaths here. Let's begin to settle in a little further, a little lower, a little deeper, and simply make a pillow for the forehead. Pile one hand on the other. Let the forehead relax down. Just begin to tune in. So, the visual perception doesn't go away, but objects in our visual field do as we close the eyes. And so that sense of, gazing out into the world, shifts a little bit. And maybe the auditory sensory doorway opens up a little wider. And the sensory, the tactile, the haptic feedback from your body gets real clear. The volume turns up a little on physical sensations. And for now, just notice it all in your field of consciousness. Now let's use kind of a form of conscious awareness, one that narrows things down a bit. And of all the things you could potentially get aware of, just bring a gentle awareness, a concentration of sorts, to the breathing sensations you feel. Now, you probably noticed that even with the prompting of taking our concentrated awareness to breathing, that whole field of conscious contents remain. So we may have noticed, sounds bubbling up, air conditioners and birds and sounds in your house. You might have noticed physical sensations other than breathing. Thoughts might have arisen. So for the last 2 minutes, let's engage in a mindfulness practice wherein we use breathing as the center of our concentration, but in a way that's curious, open, and accepting. We're also noticing all those other elements. Not trying to stuff them down, not trying to get lost in any one of them, though, either. Trying to some degree turn off our tendencies toward aversion or attraction and just let these other sensations happen. But mindfully note them and gently return a more concentrated awareness to breathing sensations. So last 2 minutes, there's going to be a concentration on breathing, but the wider scope is we're just going to notice what else bubbles up. So let's shift back into a Sphinx pose like this. It can be fairly low lying. So that concentrated awareness, I mean, there are different ways to break this down. I don't want to get too detailed, we're moving on, but it feels like it's a little more spotlight. The meditative one, a little more floodlight. One's narrowed the focus a little bit to something singular. But that's not the end goal of that meditation, right? To just try to like merge subject and object. It's kind of that next level behind that where we're also just noticing, gaining clear insight into the nature of the contents of consciousness right then. Right. Okay. So what we're going to do is splay the elbows out, kind of wide. Let the head, oh my gosh, turn all the way to one side so that your nose has clearance. And you can even mildly press your, I know gravity's doing it without your willful assistance, but you can mindfully, give the glutes a little squeeze. Not a death grip, we'll work on that later. And just keep your hips nice and grounded on your mat. And then everybody very simply bring your head up. Kind of find a slope for your neck that feels optimized. You don't necessarily want the head to hang where there's too much flex pressure right here at cervical number 7. But we don't want the head to lift way higher than everything else, such that we overextend at this juncture point. So you just find that happy medium. And then please turn the head the opposite way, lower all the way down. Let's repeat. So lift. Find the midway point. Be there. Negotiate the neck strategically. And lower down to the other side. Completely let go. And switch. Or repeat. Lifting. That part's repeating. Turning to the new side, switching. Then let's start weaving the breath. Obviously we're already breathing as we're moving, so there's already a marriage there between prana and physical body. But even more of a timing issue, and a little bit because it connects so closely with the shapes of the body. When you lift, do so during inhalation. And when you lower, do so during exhalation. Try to find approximately the same amount of time of inhale as it takes for exhale. Inhaling as you lift, lengthen, find that apex. Exhale as you lower, add a little more flex, also kind of relax into it at the bottom. Last two. Last one. Oh, so good. All right, let's come back to Sphinx. We will move on from the belly down shape. Just trying to keep my eye on the clock. We will move on from the belly down shape, but not quite yet. We've got like 2 more little sequences to go here. So we're propping back up on the forearms. Let's tuck the toes. So now from here, you're going to tuck the toes, as we're doing at this particular instant, and then untuck them. Tuck them, untuck them. So just feel those movements at your ankle joint, and maybe further up into some other leg muscles. In your toes, from pointed to tucked. Last couple. Okay. Then let's tuck all 10 toes and lift the thighs. Most of you have done this one with me before. So the thighs and the knees are off the ground. Hopefully you can see it there on camera. Sometimes it's a little hard to see. And then release them. So the toes are tucked this whole exercise. Thighs lifted, hips are still on the ground, toes are still on the ground. Your thighs are basically, up kind of as high off the ground. Well, maybe just 2 inches off the ground or so. And release. During that phase, though, of 2 inches off the ground, you're holding against gravity, and your knees are very stable and well aligned. Your quads are working, and it's a really nice optimized shape to be in. Not a ton of resistance to work against at this point, but that's all right. Last few goes. Feels really good. All right. Next, let's release that. Point the toes. Probably turn the toes slightly out. Let the heels come a little closer together. Let the head come down lower. You can do this or this. And 10 or 15 or 20 times, squeeze your glutes. Strong and active. And let them go. And squeeze your glutes. Nice, strong, active contraction. And let them go. About 15 more. Last couple. All right, and then release that. Let's go back to some kind of wider feet. Almost done. So here's what we're going to try to do. If you can get away with no support for your head, i.e. you can tuck your chin enough that it feels okay for your nose, we're almost done. Hands behind the head. And then what you're going to do is keep your hands behind your head, squeeze the shoulder blades together, and release. And repeat 6 or 8 or 10 times. So you're pulling your elbows backward and up into space, but that's squeezing your shoulder blades, retracting. Feel the strong active strength that you're building in that upper back. Big, strong upper back muscles. Don't hurry through it. Go slower than momentum. Keep a little butt squeeze throughout. Oh, goodness. Last couple goes. Goodness. Slowly. Oh my gosh. Let's shift up. If all fours is out of the cards, you can just come back and sit like this. Otherwise, let's briefly find a little all fours. And just go into a nice, easy version of cat. And a relaxed, easy version of cow. Link up with that breath synchronization. Cow is a good time to find that inhalation. And cat's a good time to connect to the exhalation. Last couple. Last one. So on this last one, lean backward a little further so your hips rock a little further back. And then just do a tiny bit of side to side. Down around your sacrum, down in your hips. Just a little bit of veer toward one side. 7 o'clock instead of 6. Or a little veer toward the other side. 5 o'clock instead of 6. Last one per side. And anyone that, if you're still working this one off your knees, you're just sitting, you can kind of find the same exploration. Goodness. However you like to do it, transition your way all the way up to standing. All right. Goodness. I know once in a while there are occasionally issues arise when we do a long opening or really at any point in the sequence in that prone shape. Sometimes nose gets a little clogged. Sometimes occasionally for some folks feels a little suffocating. So I apologize if those are your experiences in the pose, but there's a huge advantage to just lying flat like that, let alone all the work we were getting from arms, legs, neck, shoulders, hips. But Just what it kind of allows the spine to do and settle into. It opens up the back body for a little more breathing awareness. It's really nice. So anyway, y'all, now we're upright. Let's bring the hands behind the head. Essentially a movement we did when we were prone. And now we've got free range. So let's spread the shoulder blades out. This is an opportunity we didn't really have lying down. And then reconnect to that one we did earlier. It's a little easier here. Shoulder blades squeeze in. Strong work from upper back muscles. So forward movement. A little squeeze in your butt the whole time. A little hug in your belly. Backward movement with the elbows, but that equals like a squeeze in with your shoulder blades. So you can kind of track it based on where do your elbows move in space, but you can also track it, what are those inner sensations of deep back muscles. Last couple. Okay. And then let's come to the open shape, but not way back, just kind of comfortably open. And then lift your shoulders up and drop your shoulders down. So just try about 6 to 8 to 10 of these guys. So feel a little upward squeeze, a little downward pull. Heads of the shoulders and the blades of the shoulders lift. You can even hold it there. It's a little tense for a moment. And then heads of the shoulders and blades of the shoulders drop down. Even the very bottommost part of that one's a little tense. Last couple. Whew. Finally, let's bring the hands on to the shoulders, a little looser there, and then do big full circles. So forward, upward, backward, downward. Forward, upward, backward, downward. One more big circle. And then let's go the opposite direction. Backward, upward, forward, downward, backward, upward, forward, downward. Last couple goes. Awesome. And then let's release that. Shake it up. All right, everybody. So find a nice stable Tadasana shape. Maybe a little more narrow than you were before. Maybe a little wider than where you were before. Just one that feels nice and strong. Let's take the hands down onto the hips or up onto the waist. And then alternate lifting knees. Flexing from deep in your hip joint. And just like progressions on this one, let the knee thrust up a little higher. Maybe pause for a brief moment at the very top. Keep a little bit more control over your rib cage. Really all the abdominals that help to control it and side muscles. And try to stay close to your midline the whole time through. Let's get the opposite arm going. So it's kind of like a slow motion, or maybe it even feels kind of fast, like a little marching movement. 10, 12, 15 more steps. Eyes have got a deep kind of eye level gaze out toward the horizon line. Rib cage is bolstered by some strong abdominals. Really drawing the knee up every time. Okay, and then let's pause. Just hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Remember which side was lifted. And go back to the marching. And then pause. Should be the new set of limbs lifted. And hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. One more round per side. Pause on the first side. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Last march. And pause on the second side. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Release. Awesome. Next. Get as centered as possible. Keep one foot very intact to the ground. Heel, big toe mound, little toe mound. So, I mean, there's more than 3 points, but distinctly feel those 3 points. On the opposite leg, I'm going to be lifting my right. Just put in a little kickstand. Sorry, it might be hard to see the very bottom. So kickstand, I've just got the tip of the toes down on the ground. Basically, I've got like 75 to 80% of the weight, strength, balance in one leg with a tiny help from leg number 2. Then I'm just going to lift leg number 2 off the ground. Toes are a couple inches off the ground. Okay. Set the toes back down. Even out the 2 feet. Shake it out. New side. Pretty simple stuff, but it's doesn't necessarily mean we've got mastery over it immediately. So, 2 feet. 1.25 feet, something like that, when you're up on that little kickstand. And then you just release the kickstand. And you're rocking your unipedal status. Second foot's always there when you need it. And then we touch down toes. Touch down whole foot. Back to bipedal. One more time. Side 1. From 2 legs to 1. Try reaching your arms out. Try reaching your arms up. Try reaching your arms back. Try reaching your arms up and then just barely lean back into the tiniest little back bend. Finally, neutral, arms down, back to 2 feet. Last time, second side. Get centered, kickstand, up off the kickstand. Dial it in. Arms up. Arms up. So standing straight. Arms back and down. Oh, last little phase, arms up. And the tiniest little back bend. Perfectly distributed throughout your entire spine. So good. Come out of the back bend. Relax your arms. Come back to 2 feet. Oh man, that is so good, yo. So last move here. Let's squeeze the legs together. Let's hug the hips in from the side to the midline. As your butt squeezes, it's basically going from kind of pushed out to drawn in. Belly draws in, ribs draw in. Still want to be able to breathe, but I'm going to lock it down a little bit. Lean slide just barely forward. This is a big one. Simple, but powerful in some ways. Please reach both arms up. Clasp the hands together in a singular fist. I mean, this in some ways is not all that dissimilar from what we were doing when we were lying down. We were just long and neutral. We just had the support of the floor there. Now, if and only if you want a little bit more, distribute a very small curve throughout your back. Last couple breaths. So you're either straight up and down, kind of the equivalent of lying face down on the ground, or you've got a little tiny bit of back bend. That's very well distributed. If you're back bending, come out of that phase. Everybody, come out of the arm phase. Everybody, widen legs. Oh, kind of relax that whole squeeze. And then on our transition down, let's hinge at the hips. Oh, feel your hamstrings open up a little. Try not to lock the legs. I was going to say too much, but it's kind of like you're locking or you're not. But it's a bit more nuanced than that. You just don't want them to banana and bend backward. And then mindful. Oh my God. So you mindfully let your hands come down to the floor. Bend the knees a little if you need to. Let the head release here, y'all. Oh. Then to transition, if it's okay for your knees and every other part of your body for that matter, come down into a malasana, the low version of squatting. And you can let your hands be out in front and relax your head. 5 breaths here. Now, if the squatting just isn't in the cards, you can basically sit on your bottom and then just do a variation on this theme. Last couple breaths here. God, that feels good. Finally. Oh, man. We're sitting. Not for long. This is just a transitional moment. So what we're going to do from here, y'all, is just scoot the seat toward the feet. Scoot your seat toward your feet. Okay, and then extend out the legs. You can do a little kickstand back on your elbows, but even that's temporary. So we're gonna lie back down. and find Shavasana. I just need a quick little drink of water. I love that transition so much, so I'm going to go through it one more time. You kind of scoot the seat toward the feet. You might have already done it, and be in your pose. Find that little kickstand. Transition the rest of the way down. Oh, God. All right, y'all. So, as you've made your way onto your back, just take note of the landscape. Survey the territory that is your body. And maybe even just do a little wiggling of fingers and toes. And then let those guys relax. And then maybe around the shoulders and around the hips, you do a little tensing for a moment. You kind of tense. Shoulders, hips. And then you let those areas relax. And this may return you to everywhere, but let's get the feet, the legs, the hips, the arms, the hands, the shoulders, and just briefly like tense everywhere. Just squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. And then let it go. And if you feel compelled to do that one or two more times as you transition, do make sure to stop in the let go phase. And then simply coast into Shavasana from there. Sahana Bhavatu Sahanao Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karvahaye Tejasvaye Namitamasu Mavidvavashai Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. That's Om, untranslatable. May we be protected. May we be nourished. May our studies together be effective. Let there be no animosity amongst us. Peace in you and me. Peace in nature. Peace in all the forces. The invocation to yoga teaching. This beautiful, beautiful ancient practice that has really just stood the test of time and come through generation after generation. And though it unmistakably has roots in ancient India, I think historical evidence points to this, and it's certainly, I think, factually the case. It's the world's practice at this point, and we are all the beneficiaries. So anyway, if you haven't already, everybody, please make your way up to our last seat of this particular session. Okay. Let's bring the hands up to the heart and just briefly reconnect to breathing. And send a little nonverbal thanks out to everybody else that's practicing through the interwebs as we connect virtually. 21st century Sangha. All right. And I thank you all for your time and attention. Namaste.